Hello and welcome to the Midwest Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. This is Tom and I'm alongside Cody and Sam again. How's it going, guys?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm happy to talk about this week. It was a pretty interesting week. More injuries to talk about. More shakeups in the backup quarterback situation. It's like the league is being dominated by backup quarterbacks. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's kind of a rookie year.
Ba-dum-bum. All right, and on that note, let's kick off the trivia show. All right, Cody, bring us your hot trivia.
Oh my God. Well, with that great introduction. So my question to you guys is, what running back has led the league in rushing the most times in their career? Is it A, Walter Payton, B, Jim Brown, C, Emmitt Smith, or D, LaDainian Tomlinson?
So, what's the stat?
What running back has led the league in rushing the most times in their career? And I hear Sam typing. No
All right,
cheating.
I'm not.
I'm just kidding.
I heard Walter Payton, Jim Brown,
Emmitt Smith
okay, and LT.
and LT.
I have my guess.
Okay, me too.
All right, I'll let Sam guess first.
I'm gonna go with Jimmy Brown.
Tom,
I'm going to go with Emmitt Smith.
one of you is correct.
It's Sam.
It's Sam.
I figured you wouldn't go Emmitt Smith 2 weeks in a row.
No.
Well, I thought maybe that was like a recursion.
Can we all give a quick shout out? We've been doing this now 2 weeks, and that's the first time one of us has gotten a correct answer.
2 OP.
Good job, Sam.
Woo, go Sam.
Thanks.
All right. Sam, what's your trivia question?
All right, with that, let's go to a current year compared to the past. Which non-quarterback rookie is leading the league in fantasy points this year? Non-quarterback rookie, so it's clearly not Kyler. I'll give you some options too.
No,
Sorry.
you don't. I don't.
We have Josh Jacobs,
Yep.
Marquise Brown,
Yep.
Terry McLaurin, and Joey Sly, the kicker.
Ah, it's a trick question. It's going to be the kicker, isn't it? All right. I have my guess.
I have mine too.
Okay.
Okay, Tom?
Terry McLaurin.
Yep, same here.
That's both correct.
Yeah. We both get points then, right?
You do.
Yes. Who's actually keeping score?
Sam.
I have.
Oh, okay.
He's also got the dollar bet.
I forgot the bookies keeping score.
Terry,
Makes sense.
Terry McLaurin is leading Marquise Brown by 3 points.
Yeah, I figured it'd be McLaurin because he had a great week this week. And
Yeah,
He's had a good week every week.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tom, your turn.
All right. Are you guys ready for this? This is my trivia question. Number 3. Which wide receiver posted the greatest single season in fantasy football at his position? I'm going retro again. All right. I'm going to give you the name of the player and the year. Is it A, Antonio Brown, 2014? B, Calvin Johnson, 2012? C, Randy Moss, 2007? Or D, Terrell Owens, 2001? I'm not going to give you the teams.
I know mine.
Let me do some math quick.
So, again, for the listeners, which wide receiver posted the greatest single season in fantasy football at his position?
Sorry, I just saw those Randy Moss stats today, so I'm doing that compared to a different.
Oh, look at Sam being an
know.
accountant over here.
No kidding.
All right, I'm good to go.
Okay,
Yep, me too.
let's hear Sam's first. I want to hear the analytics.
I'll go Calvin Johnson.
Okay. Cody?
I'm going to go Randy Moss.
All right. I actually don't know the answer to this yet. I found this on a generic. Wait a minute. Hold on.
Well, this isn't very reliable.
It is Randy Moss, 2007.
Is that the year he had 1,366 yards and
I don't know.
17 touchdowns?
It could have been.
Wasn't that the year that he set the record for touchdown receptions with the
Oh, might have
Patriots?
been. Darn it. All right, Cody's up
So-
to 2 to 1 to 1.
Yeah, sweet. Okay. Wait, what do I get? Oh, I still have a point. So,
Yeah.
We're
okay.
tied.
You get a point. You both are at 1. I'm at 2.
Woo.
Just another thing I'm beating you guys at.
That's because our questions are easier. Okay, I'm going real hard next week.
I'm not a complete idiot. All right, sweet. So let's jump into talking about the matchups. And I really want to highlight a player by the name of LaShawn McCoy, who Matt Magnuson did not start, and heavens knows why. Guys, any insight on this one? I mean, is Matt just one of the worst owners we know?
I heard he was completely healthy going into this matchup, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, who would really want to start the starting running back of the Chiefs? Like, who would have thought that they would score points?
Yeah.
So Matt does want us to point out that he thought he was injured from some report, and he didn't start him because he was worried about him. Honestly, it wouldn't have made a difference, so if that makes him feel a little bit better, that's fine by me.
it wouldn't have. And the funny thing too is that I think that he was so discouraged by his ability to manage that now he's trying to sell his team. He publicly came out and tried to sell like 3 of his players and even put players on the trade block. So something to look out for.
When your player nicknames are on the block, you know that they're probably going to be traded.
Right. Well, my player nicknames are on the cock because that's how good they are.
Why is that a good thing?
I don't know. Just leave me alone.
That's a great start.
Because Tom keeps getting diddled.
Oh.
All right, so really we're going to talk about matchup of the week was Sam Betland versus Eric Barber. And we're going to talk about the winner of this week first in Eric. And let's start off with Sony Michel. Tom Brady, 23 points this week. I mean, he's just your consistent, classic, high floor kind of guy, but he's not going to ever get more than 30 points normally. But Sony Michel, 9 carries, 11 yards, 1 touchdown, no receptions. Guys, tell me about him.
I was really high on him coming into the year. It's looking a little brutal with his highest of 3 points being, or 3 weeks being 11 points. It's not great.
Yeah, it just seems like the Patriots are notorious for coming out and saying this is our guy, and then something in Belichick's mind goes off and says, "Oh, never mind, this is our new running back for the year." Even though all offseason everyone thought it was Michelle, but you can never trust the Patriots running game.
I think the thing I've noticed the most about the Patriots offense, especially at the running back position, is that game to game it varies. Like they literally just played the hot hand of the game. Like Rex Burkhead actually looked okay like this week, and they just kept feeding him carries. I mean, Sony Michel only played like 22% of the snaps. I mean, that's nothing.
Yeah, it's tough to say because they do have like several talented running backs, right? Especially with Damian Harris, whatever we talked about this last week, but and James White. But it just feels like you can never trust that backfield. And now are you supposed to trust Rex Burkhead?
No.
Absolutely
I
not.
mean, to put it lightly, but like even on top of that, when he has gotten playing time, it's not been good. I mean, last game 1.2 yards per carry. The first week he had 0.9 yards per carry. I mean, isn't there a reason they're not playing him more? I guess.
Yeah, no, that's probably true. But that's just kind of interesting seeing how last year he actually was just good and was their bell cow. And I don't know what's gotten into them this year, especially playing bad defenses. None of these defenses are good.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It just feels like talking about the lottery with the Patriots running back situation.
Yeah.
So Frank Gore got 14 carries and 76 yards with a touchdown, scored 17 points. Really nice showing for Eric there. Actually, probably part of the reason that he won that matchup. But let's talk about Davante Adams, only 9 points. You know, perennially for the last like 3 years, he's been a top 5 wide receiver, and everyone thought he would be as well going into every year. And now this game, only 4 targets with 56 yards. I mean, what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I'm kind of worried. I don't remember the exact stat, but last year I believe he had 0 weeks where he had below 66 yards and didn't score a touchdown. And this year he has 2 of the 3 weeks with those stats, which is he was the hyper consistent, and now he can't really put up points.
Yeah, take it with a grain of salt. The fact that like Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers both came out and saying that they need to get Davante Adams more involved in the passing game. So hopefully he can at least get back on track. That's kind of what my hope is. But I think they kind of realize they have to, or else like that offense, because their offense is fine, but it's been like kind of struggling. Like not really struggling. It's been just kind of middle of the road to me. I think they just got to figure out how to get the ball to him more. I mean, 4 targets isn't nearly enough. And Matt LaFleur, you know, again, it could just be coach talk, but he said he took blame in his play calling ability for not giving, you know, Davante Adams the necessary targets.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see moving forward what happens with that because, I mean, haven't we seen this story before with the Packers wide receivers where, like, this guy he's the guy, and then all of a sudden Rodgers starts going to another guy like MVS, in this case, who he seems to be going a lot to, and then all of a sudden you forget about the guy like Davante Adams. I mean, we're talking Javon Walker in the past, Greg Jennings in the past, like all these guys that were the number one and then just all of a sudden stop being that guy. Is this the year that happens with Adams, or is it just early, whatever, RELAX?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's 26. I'm more worried than I thought I would be at this point. I thought he'd put up 3 20-point weeks instead of 1. Does he end top 10 receiver? Probably not at this point, but does he end as a probably mid to high wide receiver too? I'd say yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine going forward. Personally, I don't know. I think it just might be a little flukish right now. When it might just be a little unfortunate because I mean, even in the first couple games, getting eight targets and 9 targets, I don't know. I think that first game maybe should have gone a little bit better than the way it went. We'll see.
But they scored 27 points. All right, that's okay. We don't have to talk about it anymore. Tyler Boyd, 13.7 points. Another solid week for him as a wide receiver too. I mean, I wouldn't put him any higher than that, but that's great that he turned out for Eric. And then Emmanuel Sanders with only 2 catches for 10 yards. I mean, whatever. I'm not going to BS about some stat I read that he's like one of the best receivers according to some next gen stat in the last 2 years. So it's kind of weird to see him have a down game, but whatever.
Wasn't he injured most of last year?
Yeah, when he plays, he's like one of the next gen.
He tears ACL.
Yeah, he did. And maybe it's not the last 2 years then. Before he tore his ACL, it must have been. So that's just me talking about ass. But who we do want to talk about is Evan Ingram, who, holy shit. I mean, he rattled off one really long reception. I believe he finished it for a touchdown. But 6 of 8 receptions for 113 yards and a touchdown with Daniel Jones at quarterback. Is that Daniel Jones more or is that Evan Ingram?
I mean, I think it's more just kind of the system of having a rookie quarterback more than anything else. I mean, if you watch the touchdown, that was completely Evan Ingram. He literally just outran everybody, and he showed why his 40-yard dash time was like a 4.40. Like, he was super fast and just bursting on the edge. So he's super talented, but with a rookie quarterback, you're just going to continuously keep going to your tight end, I think, in this situation, which going forward only helps Evan Ingram's value.
Yeah, last week we talked about how he was like probably jumping into the top 4 guys, like up there with Kittle, Kelsey, Ertz. I'm convinced of that now, I think. I mean, Ingram's kind of just a wide receiver at tight end anyway. So, yeah, that's great for Barber in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Is there any chance that he falls below the 5th tight end this year? You know what I mean? Like, I still put Ertz and Kelsey and Kittle up there, and maybe one other guy sneaks in, but
Waller.
Yeah, that PPR monster.
Yeah. The last question before we move on from talking about Eric here is, does he deserve Matt's ranking of being number 2 in the power rankings?
Depends on how you view power rankings. I mean,
Yeah.
the way I view it is it's who's most likely to make playoffs and therefore have a chance at winning. But at that point, it's mostly luck anyway. There's only a certain amount you can do week to week.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's 3-0 with, I believe, 3rd highest points. So, yeah, I would say he does deserve it.
Yeah, I mean, the only other place you would probably put him is 3rd at this point if you wanted to move Sam up, but it's not like...
I'd rather not do that, so I'm okay.
Yeah, I would rather have the win than my 50-point lead.
But looking at his team, though, I will say there are some question marks, for even though he's performed really well so far, in my opinion.
There's a lot of question marks with Sam's team. Let me tell you about that.
It's actually true. Sadly.
Let's start with a guy that doesn't have any question marks, though, in Dalvin Cook. The man has 26 points this week. Let's just go through. Week 1, 28 fantasy points in our league. Week 2, 32, and week 3, 26. I mean, he's RB1 currently in almost any way you play fantasy football, and the Vikings like to run the ball. It doesn't look like it's going to stop.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously solid, and they're running the ball all the time. And I know we discussed it last week that he couldn't sustain that over 20 carries a game, close to 25 touches. This is the exact game I was looking for. Given we had a huge lead, but he's on the field 60% of the time, which, yeah, maybe bump it up a little bit, but we were up 28 points or something. But 16 carries, 5 receptions, looking at 140 total yards. That's what I like to see. I think that's like an Alvin Kamara line right there.
Yeah,
that's what you
looking
want.
like it.
Yeah, and the more that I've actually watched him, especially when he keeps running, I mean, he's getting past the initial D line and the linebackers too, and he's either making his way to the outside or just hitting safeties. So he's not really getting those high impact tackles, which is actually, in my mind, kind of helped support my theory that I actually think he might make it through the season without getting injured this year. Even his touchdown run, he didn't even get tackled. He literally just he hit the line, he was in, and then he just kind of got stood up, but he didn't really get tackled. And I don't know. I think he's looking really good so far.
He's impossible to touch, and he's fast, and his jukes are good.
God, did you see that double juke that he did?
Yep.
That was disgusting.
He's got the injury risk, but I think if he finishes the season, he's part of that top tier with Zeke and Kamara and Barkley.
Yeah, and McCaffrey.
Absolutely.
And McCaffrey, obviously, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, in redraft leagues, he's absolutely a steal. Let's not forget to talk about that. I mean, most people had him like, what, RB 14 to anywhere to RB 10, somewhere around there. And
Yeah, in our team with only 7 guys in another league, I mean, I was able to get him, I think, in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
And, like, that's like for the
just
number.
an absolute steal.
Yeah, I was so happy I got that.
Not to derail the podcast too far, but I think he's actually a really interesting example of like someone that has had very little experience that people were rating very highly just based on the eye test, and it's kind of interesting to see it pan out this way.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome for you for sure. And you reached out in the auction draft and spent a lot of money on your Vikings guy and had to deal with a little bit of turmoil last year, but now, man, he's looking great again for this year. So let's talk about your wide receiver 2 and 3. We have Christian Kirk with 10 receptions, 59 yards, and DJ Shark with 4 receptions for 76 and a touchdown, both scoring around, solid wide receiver 2-3 stats. Now I'm going to turn this on you, Sam. Who is your guy moving forward that you most look forward to having in that slot?
Kirk.
Okay.
By far.
I thought so too.
I mean, I think like looking at his targets each game, he's got 12, 8, 12. And given the first game, he only had 4 receptions, but still, I think it's pretty clear that it's him and Fitzgerald that are Kyler Murray's targets, and the way that they're running that offense. If he throws 50 times a game, Kirk's going to continue to get 10 to 15 targets, and you can't not be productive when you have 10 to 15 targets.
Yeah, and I know for sure that Cody and I were talking about when you made that trade to acquire him that he was way underrated in and especially if Murray obviously is still a rookie, but a lot of this could be attributed to garbage time being down quite a bit to Carolina throughout the game, but at the same time Murray is looking like a very adequate passer, and that only helps a slot guy like Kirk. So
Yeah, I love Kirk. I love watching him play. He's just like this little speedster, but he's actually really like athletic and very versatile and can catch a
he's
lot.
like an Amendola Tate kind of guy that actually seems to be really helping Murray.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I think also the fact he's only 22 to me is just. I think he's only going to gel more with Kyler Murray, especially as they gain more experience together.
It's going to be a really exciting offense to watch.
Absolutely.
So DJ Shark with Gardner Minshew now at quarterback. What's the story on this guy? You picked him up like 2 weeks ago, right?
No, I've actually had him
have you had him?
since our inaugural draft. He was a 2nd-round pick in last year's draft, and I saw he was 6'3", it says on here, and I don't remember his exact 40, but it was in the 4.3s. So he's super fast, he's tall, and just very raw, and I was hoping he panned out, and finally he is. So maybe it's Gardner that is all he needed, but...
So Sam was watching the draft, and as everyone was sleeping on the 5th round, Sam saw Gardner Minshew got taken. He was like, oh, Shark's my boy.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because we watched that game together, I think, and was that the catch thrown like the corner of the end zone where he just made a pretty sweet snag, or was that more on Minshew? I can't remember now.
I'd say it was more on Minshew.
Okay.
I mean, it was a fine catch, but it was right in his breadbasket.
But it
Yeah.
brings up a reasonable point that Minshew's a good quarterback. Holy shit.
Yeah, he's certainly not bad. I mean, the Titans are not a bad defense either.
No.
So doing what he did against them is very impressive in my opinion.
It just really makes me wish that we were a super flex league, because I would love to be able to start some of these quarterbacks that are like fun to pick up. And I mean, we've already had I think Rudolph was picked up for X amount of dollars. Bridgewater's been reasonable to start, and it's just kind of too bad that they're just kind of bench riders.
Yep.
Yeah. The one thing I will say about DJ Chark is that at least going forward, because I think I would put him probably about a mid wide receiver 2 going forward.
Oh wow, really?
Which I think is low, but the reason I say that is because I think what he's putting up right now is unsustainable with the amount of targets he's been getting.
Wait, you put him at like a mid wide receiver 2, like around wide receiver 18?
Yeah, I think for the rest of the season.
Oh,
Not where he'll finish, but I think as far as the rest of the season. I mean, he's had 2 games where he's gotten less than 6 targets. I mean, his conversion from catches to his targets is a little bit like kind of crazy to me. I mean, first game 4 for 4, third game 4 for 5. I think that's pretty high. Also, the fact that he's pretty much been on the field only between like 70 to 80% of the snaps, to me seems like that's not really that necessarily high end that you always kind of hope to see. Like as with Christian Kirk, we were seeing it like at like 90%. So I think he's gonna take a little bit of a regression hit from that, and that's why I kind of think I'm gonna drop him down to the mid tier, possible high tier wide receiver too.
What number?
What number?
Dollar bet.
Gosh,
Inaugural week 3 dollar bet.
No kidding.
It's coming. Incoming. At this point, I'm going to take any number you say based on who you're talking about.
Agreed.
I think 16 is reasonable.
Okay,
Deal.
I'll take
Can
the under.
Can I take 10 to 1?
10 to 1?
Yep, 10 to 1.
You'll take that 10
I'll
to
take
1.
10 to 1.
Okay.
Absolutely on dollar bet. Yep.
Wait, why would you offer 10 to 1?
Okay.
You were just giving you that standard.
What? Well, I mean, like, I just want to take as much money. Okay, maybe not 10 to 1. I don't know what that means. I just want as much money on this bet as I can take.
I think what we're both saying is that, like, I think the rest of the season, he's like a mid wide receiver 3.
Yeah. But wait, let's
you
not
got.
let him talk out
I
of
think
it.
he's way worse than wide receiver.
Wait.
16.
Let's solidify the dollar bet first.
Yeah.
We're taking the dollar bet.
Okay.
Clear. Okay. That's 16.
I'll let you have this one.
Okay. Oh, we can both take it, right?
Nah, it's easier to do one person. I'll let you have
You
this
guys are
one.
really that down on him?
Yes.
What do you mean that? I mean, like, saying that he's better than half of the NFL team's wide receiver ones is aggressive to me.
And early.
Yeah, and early. I think he's a fine.
Sure.
I think he's a fine wide receiver, and I'm happy to have him on my team, and he'll be a starter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if he was my wide receiver 2, I would be unhappy. I'm like pretty medium on him as my wide receiver 3, personally.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
if you value him that high, I would be happy to trade.
Yeah.
I think Kirk is like a mid wide receiver 2 to me, at least,
Yeah.
just based on PPR. And I would much rather have Kirk than Shark, personally.
Yeah, it'll just be interesting to see how he continues with Minshew. I don't know, especially if that rapport keeps building up, but that's the only reason I kind of give him a little bit of leniency on that. I mean, also the fact that, like, if I wanted to read into this a little bit more, I guess going against my point would be that against Tennessee, they kind of had a lead early. Or they were down, weren't they?
They had a lead because of Shark's touchdown, really.
Yeah, they had a lead, but then they just started like just basically just running the ball with Fournette the rest of the game and weren't really throwing it, which we'll see if that continues.
Okay, so the last guy we're going to talk about for your team, Sam, is Chris Carson. 15 carries for 53 yards, 1 reception for -2 yards, and another fumble. I don't know how Penny finished out that game, but I imagine a lot of people are on Penny watch. But I also have heard allegedly that Pete Carroll has said, "Oh no, Chris Carson is still our guy." Cause for concern.
Well, yeah. I mean, he averaged 3.5 yards a carry and fumbled, so I'm not happy about it. I still think he's a running back 2, in my opinion. I don't think he's what people were valuing at, but I mean, I think he'll bounce back. I'll be a lot more worried if he doesn't perform against Arizona this week.
All right, does he have a 4th fumble in Game 4?
I don't think so. I think he's done with that now, at least for a game.
Okay. Yeah, Matt's got to be on this roller coaster with Penny after acquiring him. Like, do I like him? I don't like him. I like him. I don't like him.
That is quite the roller coaster.
Yep, and it's only going to keep continuing.
Yeah. All right. Well, so Sam, you lost this week by 4 points.
Yep.
Made me really happy in our division. But, yeah, that's kind of a sucky loss to score 165 and still lose. But that's mid-range, I guess.
I was doing it. I was like looking at it, and I had 6th highest points in the week. So technically, I deserve to win, but not really.
Yeah.
If your 6th highest points, it's just a flip of the coin.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, even a shit team like me scored higher than you.
I know.
That's
once.
true.
All right, let's move on and talk about the perennial LaShawn McCoy question team, which is Matt Maggs and Cody's matchup. We're going to start talking about the 242-point week. Now, I'm gonna make myself sound like a hero because last year I talked about how Cody's like what it was like you scored like 245
I think it was 239
or something like that, and
Yeah,
I said
the
that would be the
first-
I
highest.
think this is the highest points ever. In a
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And I said that would be the highest for the rest of the year. You guys said, no way. At least 2 or 3 people are going to do that.
Sure.
And that was the highest score. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, now that we have historical data, that's going to be the highest score this year, probably.
I think there's a good chance.
Okay. So a lot of that was led by, starting right out of the gate, Cody just goes and starts a rookie quarterback at quarterback because his quarterback situation is that awful that he has to start Daniel fucking Jones. But he still scored 38 points for him. I mean, I don't know. I watched a lot of that game, but I want to hear what you guys saw from Daniel Jones.
What do you think, Cody? He's your player. Start with you.
Start off with him. I think he's still. Obviously, I'm not like, oh, he's a top 10 quarterback, or he's a quarterback one off of this. Da, 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 da. But I think he's like around QB 20, a little bit higher than that now. I feel pretty confident about that from watching it. What surprised me the most out of him was actually his ability to run the football. Like, I know he got those 2 touchdowns, but even just watching him just maneuver around a couple defenders. I mean, that first touchdown run, he had to outrun like a couple cornerbacks.
It was a designed bootleg, too,
Yeah, it
which
was.
means that they're willing to give him the leg plays.
Exactly. So if he's going to be running for some touchdowns occasionally here, that only boosts his value. And then as far as a passer, he actually has pretty good awareness. And he what I actually really liked about him is that he wasn't just like so fixated on his first read. He was actually willing to look at his other reads and go to different wide receivers over the course of the game and other guys. I mean, he had a couple dangerous throws. He didn't look great, I think, in like the second quarter, but then the third quarter and fourth quarter, for a rookie to just start performing really high, I think that was really good. I basically from this game, I now feel comfortable with starting him in the future.
Yeah.
During bye weeks or like for your week-to-week starter?
I think week to week, honestly. I think with their division, I'm not too worried about defenses. So I think that he'll get by just fine.
To be fair, this is Cody's best option at quarterback right now, so it kind of has to be his. It's not really his bye week.
Josh Rosen?
That's true.
No. I mean, all right. So I watched a lot of that game. Number one, Tampa Bay is pretty close to being Dolphins level bad at defense. I'm not taking anything away because it's the same thing that you said when Lamar Jackson had a great first week, right? However, I will say that he did look really composed in pressure, and I have to wonder if I'm like basically the longtime descendant of Eli Manning, I think he's just so retarded that he can't see that there's pressure coming, and so he's able to get the ball off. That must have been what it is, I think.
Wow, I hope he keeps doing that. And I hope he keeps succeeding then. I don't care how he does it. He could be just an actual, like you said, a retard.
I apologize. I shouldn't use the R word. But anyway.
Mentally handicapped.
That's still offensive, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm told.
He's not going to put up 38 points or probably even 30 points. I don't know. I don't think he'll do that, maybe once or twice again. Maybe, if he gets lucky. But I think he can consistently be around 20. And I'm very confident or very happy starting that.
Yeah, I mean, the naysayers of Daniel Jones definitely feel stupid after watching that game, but...
Yes, and there were plenty of them.
But
yeah, one right here.
I'm still holding to it. I hate Daniel Jones. I have to say it every episode. Okay, so Christian McCaffrey had a butt ton of points again, even with Kyle Allen at quarterback, which kind of solves the problem of, is he bad? Which we talked about last week. Is he worse now without Newton? Nope, turns out he's just fine.
Yep, he's a good running back.
But Mark Ingram, 38 points, 16 carries for 103 yards, 3 touchdowns, a little inflated on the touchdowns, but it's clear that they like him as the goal line guy. And then 4 receptions for 32 yards. One of the stories from week 1 in our podcast was, do the Ravens even like throwing balls to their court or to the running backs? Like, is their new look offense after working with Lamar Jackson in the offseason, is it ever going to be that swinging out? And now if you have 4 receptions from a guy like Mark Ingram, I mean, that's encouraging. In addition to the goal line work, I mean, I love it, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people I was listening to actually have him as a low RB1. Like,
wow,
I believe it now. I mean, I think I've been shown everything to believe it. He gets the goal line carries. He gets majority of the carries on a good offense. I mean, I think it's kind of like the Kansas City effect. And I think I'm willing to say that now for this. He's getting used in the passing game. I mean, he's not going to be this great every game, and I totally understand that. It is the Chiefs, and they have a terrible run defense, so I'm willing for that. But
so what's low RB1?
Yeah, that's my question. I will bet you he won't end as a top 12 running back.
Yeah, I mean, oh God,
put your money where your mouth is.
All right, I'm fine with that.
Okay, it's in.
Absolutely.
You got the DJ Chark one.
Okay, that's fine. God, I don't like taking money from Cody.
I don't know. I've already listened to 2 guys say that they think he's going to finish as a low RB1.
Now you got 2 more that don't.
All right, well, not really.
I don't know about you guys, but I have my own opinion, and I definitely don't. So I mean,
where do you actually have him
we
finishing?
were the 2 guys.
I guess that's an interesting question. Where do you have him finishing?
Like RB 16,
yes,
17.
I was gonna say mid to low RB.
You think there's 15 running backs right now better than him?
Yep.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Not talent-wise, maybe. I mean, I think Ingram's incredibly talented.
But I think he's already on an offense that that would almost give me more optimism of him being an RB1. I mean, he's on a primarily running team still that is very good at that. Like, I don't know. I don't see why there's reason to think he won't be that.
Well, let's chalk it up to a dollar bet and move on to Josh Gordon, if that's okay with you.
Nope. Trigger.
Keep her rolling.
Yep.
Josh Gordon,
The Wanna man.
yeah, the Juana man.
Juana man.
Antonio Brown leaves the New England Patriots. Says he's signing up for school now, and he needs it desperately because I don't think he actually finished 5th grade from how he talks.
Sing.
And but something about Josh Gordon that's really interesting, I think, is how they immediately gave him 11 targets in this game. Granted, it was the New York Jets, and man, a lot of people are already clamoring that the Patriots are going to go 16-0 again with how good they look. I'm not going to bet against it, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he's wide receiver 1 on that offense, and that's really encouraging for you, especially because you only got him for a first rounder.
Yeah, actually a little bit of room for pessimism on him is the fact that in the first half, he actually really wasn't doing that well. If you watch the game, he was getting, I think he was like 2 for 5 on his targets with only like 25 yards. But it was once Edelman left the game is when he started getting all these receptions and yards and actually started doing pretty well. So while this game does look really good, especially with Antonio Brown leaving, I think there is kind of that to be thrown into the mix as well. Because, I mean, when Edelman's in, I still think he is the higher targeted wide receiver in that offense. Just because of the slot position that he plays. But it'll be interesting to see how Gordon does going forward because I could see, something like this maybe hopefully becoming a mainstay, but just for something I noticed this week.
Or at least for this year. I mean, I can reasonably see him being phased out slowly in the future, or not necessarily phased out, but just like not as necessarily impactful, even though it's only 14 points. I mean, yeah, honestly, there might not be more to talk about with him. Right? I mean, if he's just getting 11 targets, 6 receptions, and 14 fantasy points, that's kind of...
Oh, I would love that. I would be thrilled with that. That's the whole reason I went and got him.
Yeah, of course. Right.
For me, what it boils down to is he's your wide receiver 3.
Yep.
And like, if he was a wide receiver 2, that's a lot of risk.
Yes.
But yeah, if you can put up even 10 points a game, 10 to 15 points a game as a wide receiver 3, adds plenty of value to your team.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to put John Brown as my wide receiver 3. So that, to me, that's encouraging to have Gordon show
And John
up.
Brown fits in exactly where I want him to fit in too,
Flex.
where I don't want him as my wide receiver 3. I'm very happy having him as my flex.
Absolutely. And you scored 242 points against Matt's still, again, respectable 161. So it's kind of sad that Matt just got blown out. But look, he didn't start LaShawn McCoy. So again, I don't know why. He hasn't made it clear at all. Maybe he'll finally make it clear to us why he didn't start him. But speaking of that, let's actually talk meaningfully about LaShawn McCoy. He might be again out this next week against the Lions. And now a lot of people are saying, all right, bring on Darwin Thompson and Darrell Williams. We already talked about how Damon Williams isn't actually that great of a running back anyway. And so are we looking at a Kansas City Chiefs 2018 situation now where if with these guys injured, if either Thompson or Williams shows up, are they the guy?
No. I think they draft someone.
Okay.
Sure, maybe if they average 150 yards a game like Damian Williams did last year when he started, then they won't. But I mean, with all of the talented running backs coming in next year, it sounds like they can wait till late first or even a second to get a good running back.
What about rest of season?
Rest of season, I mean, yeah, whoever starts. I mean, I think if Damian Williams comes back, he'll be the starter again.
Okay. So you don't think that someone could play well enough to knock him out?
Probably
Or
not.
McCoy. That's the problem, right? It's both McCoy and Williams.
That's my opinion.
I think if Williams comes back and McCoy's healthy, I think it's clear that it's McCoy right now. I think Williams doesn't really get that back role anymore. As much as I wanted to be high on Thompson, and he looked fine in the preseason, he just really hasn't shown anything yet for me to even be happy about whatsoever.
You mean like the Chiefs haven't given the opportunity to show anything?
Yeah, but
right?
they were talking about using him primarily as a receiving running back, and he hasn't even he's had snaps and he just hasn't been used in that role either. So I don't know. I think they haven't given him a huge opportunity, but even I think some guys will just be given minimal snaps, and then if they can perform even a little bit off those snaps, then they're given a little bit more, as a carry forward, especially for rookie running backs. And he's just done nothing with what he's been given so far, which I think is a little cause of concern.
Sure.
I mean, yeah.
So just to put it into context, I guess, next week, between Derrick Henry, TJ Yeldon, no, it's not, obviously he's starting Henry. Let's say between TJ Yeldon, Demir Bird, and LaShawn McCoy, is he starting McCoy over both of those, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If he's healthy.
Right.
We're not sure if he's going to be healthy this week either.
Says he's probably. Yeah. Am I playing Matt? Yeah, he looks injured.
So we're reiterating that Matt was just an idiot for sitting him this week.
Yep.
Yeah, beating a dead horse. Okay, so Stephon Diggs. A lot of people in Minnesota, in addition to just the whole fantasy world, a little concerned because Adam Thielen is still looking like Adam Thielen as far as what the whole Diggs and Thielen kind of thing going on. But, I mean, as I always say, I think both of them are overrated, and I'm looking like I'm kind of right about Stephon Diggs, but what's happening? You guys were Vikings fans.
I actually disagree with what you're saying. I think the game script doesn't exactly add up to Stephon Diggs this week, and so I think
any week this season.
Last week.
I mean, last
when
week
he got 7 targets.
Sure. Okay.
But I think even with that week, I think the issue with Stephon Diggs isn't the fact that he's overrated. I think it literally has just been Kirk Cousins so far this year. Like, okay, if you look at like the amount of targets he was given the first and third week, he literally converted on all those targets. Like he
I
got
guess I'm not disagreeing that it's about. I guess I'm agreeing with you that it could be about Cousins.
I think it 100% is about
yeah,
Cousins.
yeah.
I mean, there was one pass or one or two plays in the Green Bay game that I was like, Diggs should have made that. Diggs should have done that maybe. But I mean, like, the Green Bay game was pretty much Cousins' worst game of his career. Yes. And so that, like, it seems avoidable for Diggs to only have 1 reception and 7 targets. But to your point, I'm very, very, very worried about him for the rest of the season. Like, I don't know.
Here's what I'm going to say. I'm not necessarily worried about specifically Diggs or Thielen. I'm worried about Diggs and Thielen. Because I can see a world where, Diggs has the return game of 10 targets, 8 receptions, 100 yards and touchdown. And then because of Kirk Cousins' ability, Thielen now doesn't get the work. Whereas before, I guess what I'm getting at is that before it seemed reasonable that that offense could support both Diggs and Thielen. Now, Cousins looks, in a lot of people's eyes, worse than last year for whatever reason, and the offense looks way more geared towards running the ball.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just the way that they're coaching this year.
Yeah.
Is that we've run the ball 30-plus times a game.
Exactly.
And given that is partially game script, but to me, one really telling stat, looking at Stephon Diggs, the games that we crushed against Atlanta and Oakland, he was on the field 60 and 70% of the time. The game against Green Bay when we were down, he's on the field 89% of the time and got more targets in that game than the other two put together. I don't think he'll be what everyone expected him to be coming into this year, but I would still be happy with him as my wide receiver 2 going forward.
Low end wide receiver 2, yeah, agreed. So I guess I'm not necessarily happy with him.
Maybe. Yeah, but I mean, he's his third wide receiver on that team.
For sure. Yep.
So I'd be very happy still, I guess, with him as my third wide receiver.
And that would be because his wide receiver 1 is Keenan Allen, and not just his wide receiver 1, but the world's. The world's wide receiver 1 right now is Keenan Allen. So, and as far as he's the highest scoring player in PPR, that's over Patrick Mahomes, that's over Lamar Jackson, that's over some other guy, I can't remember. But anyway, he had a carry for 3 yards. But really what happened last game was that he had 17 targets with hauling in 183 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I think we talked about before the show a little bit that doesn't really seem sustainable, but it is still obviously encouraging considering that Mike Williams maybe, people thought, oh, he's going to see more. And what's going to happen now that Hunter Henry's back? Well, Hunter Henry isn't there and Mike Williams doesn't look like he's really doing much. So Keenan Allen is looking great for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think having about 10 to 13 targets a game seems pretty reasonable to me going forward here. I mean, he's always been known as a high PPR guy, and which was why he was always super valuable, in past leagues, and he's just proving it again. I mean, he looks fine to me. I don't know. I think he's going to be really good.
Yeah, he's crushing it. He won't. I don't think he'll end the number 1 receiver, but he'll end top 10 at this point. I mean,
yep.
In PPR specifically.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the big thing.
I would be fine with him as my wide receiver 1. Thrilled with him as my wide receiver 2. Like Matt
sure.
has.
So at Miami next week, over under 25 points. Currently projected at about 25 points.
Over.
Yeah, I think that's a fair bet.
Yeah.
That's one to go to Vegas on in my eyes.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, done talking about that matchup. Cody won by 80 points. let's move on to talking about Marcus and Matt Trujillo. Say it with me,
Nice.
boys. Trujillo.
Rufio.
Nice. Okay, let's start off with talking about Skoniewski. Scored 206 points this week. Let's top it off with talking about a man that didn't really even reasonably contribute to scoring 200-plus points this week, and that's Robert Woods on the Los Angeles Rams. He had 2 carries for 18 yards, whatever, that's just weird game play calling stuff. But he had 8 targets, only hauled in 3, and 40 yards, no touchdowns. So what's the story on Woods?
I don't know. Another player I was high on coming into this year that hasn't really performed. So we'll see. Maybe I'm just not a good analyst.
It's possible.
No, yeah, I don't know, honestly. Yeah, 8 targets, only 3 receptions, a little bit worrisome. The whole Rams offense to me, other than one specific player, is kind of just off this entire year. So not really sure what to think about it.
Yeah, I think they're kind of like a Patriots type offense where anybody could have a big game in any Sunday pretty much. Like, I mean, Cooper Kupp was the one who went off this last week, and I think it's become pretty apparent to me that Kupp is becoming Goff's favorite wide receiver. He was last year when Kupp was playing too.
Yep.
And then Woods obviously stepped it up once Kupp was injured.
Which is why a lot of people were so high on him this year.
Yeah.
Now we see what happens when Kupp's back, and Cooks is still like fine and still.
Yep.
In if it's Kupp 1, it's just the sad thing is now it's clearly Cooks 2, which is why Woods is a little doesn't look great.
I mean, what do you guys think happened? I mean, I was looking at last year's stats really quick, and weeks 2 through 16, so 14 weeks straight of games, he got more than 10 fantasy points every single game.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks straight here, he got below 10. I mean, what happened that he dropped that much from last year?
It could just be the overall game plan change a little bit. I mean, teams don't really need to worry about Todd Gurley like they did last year. I mean, or the running attack in general. I think they can actually focus a little bit more on the passes, specifically on those outside wide receivers. And I mean, Kupp's getting those matchups against those linebackers, and as we saw with the Vikings game last year, he literally just wrecks linebackers covering him. Like, he can just destroy them because he's so fast. So I think I don't know. I'm really optimistic on Kupp going forward, and I'm definitely worried on both Woods and Cooks on the outside.
I'm not worried about Cooks. I'm just neutral on Cooks.
Sure.
But as
That's
far as
fine,
how
yeah.
he was going into the year, he's
Yeah, I know he's been
clear.
fine. Yeah,
As a
that's
Cooks
true.
owner, nothing has changed.
That's my
with Cooks.
take, but
Yeah, I think that's a good take. Yeah, Kupp it's so nice to see him come back from the ACL injury and look like a beast. So, yeah, sure-handed and everything. Meanwhile, in Philadelphia, there are babies being thrown out of burning buildings and being caught successfully by civilians. But Nelson Aguilar can't catch a ball, and he drops the ball, just literally while running, just drops the ball, and no one even touched him. But he still had 8 receptions for 50 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, my take on that is that they are missing wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 in that offense. But do you guys think there's anything to buy into that there?
Nope. I think once Alshon's back, and especially Deshaun Jackson too, he'll go back to being 3 points per week kind of guy. Maybe a little bit more, but
I couldn't agree more with Sam. I hate Nelson Aguilar. He just
More than Daniel Jones? Or more than I hate Daniel Jones?
Yes, actually, probably. I think he's just not a very good wide receiver for so long, and yet he still gets playing time. And I don't know. I think he's trash.
I would like to say props to Marcus for playing him, because I think that's a really good play, and knowing that those 2 other receivers were out.
For sure.
So
Yeah. Now, so here's the thing. We were going to talk about A.J. Brown, and the really weird thing about A.J. Brown was that, like, week 1, he was like, oh, yeah, he only had 43% snap percentage, but, like, he was catching balls. He looked great. I mean, he looked like after they got him from Ole Miss, like he was the real deal, and Marcus Mariota looked great. And it was against Cleveland. Well, now Cleveland looks like maybe they were way overhyped in the season, and they go ahead and play Jacksonville, and he gets completely shut down. So I guess the question is, was A.J. Brown good because he was playing against Cleveland, or is he bad because he was playing against Jacksonville? I don't know if that question even makes sense.
I don't really think it's that simple. I think just fluke games can happen. And all it takes is one big catch in order to make yourself all of a sudden have a good game. I mean, Jacksonville obviously is known as having a very good defense.
Yeah. Yep. That's what I was trying to get at.
No, I understand that and whatnot. But even still, I mean, I don't know. To me, it's just like the targets have remained the same consistently throughout the season. The snap percentages remain the same consistently pretty much throughout the season. So to me, it's just like he just had a good catch, and then that was the only difference between one game and the other.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I think Marcus is in a good position for where he has AJ Brown, which is on the bench.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I think he's essentially Corey Davis, and maybe just slightly worse, but obviously younger. Where like the team he's on, it's not good, but is he a good receiver? I think so. So it's
absolutely.
just a terrible situation currently.
Right, and we're talking about in a couple of years, if they don't have Mariota anymore, he looks good.
Or even 1 year.
Yeah,
It might
exactly.
be. I wanted Mariota to look good this year, but
Yep.
I wasn't the
Tennessee's
only one.
wanted that for a lot of years.
Yeah, he sure has.
Like 4 now, right? That's true. So Trujillo.
Trujillo.
Shit.
Shut.
This week he scored 160 points, and again, just a lot of guys really in that mid range that they can't be upset with their teams, but getting blown out. And Garoppolo, he just traded for him. He only has 7 points now. Our
Open QB tryouts.
again, I
Bet he
mean,
wishes he had Daniel Jones.
yeah, especially because speaking about other, I mean, I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers were really overhyped, but they were just they're always kind of in that discussion. And now we're looking at a defense that doesn't look great, an offense doesn't look great, and San Francisco won, but no, it doesn't seem like it was really helped to Garoppolo. It seems like they're just jamming the ball up the gut with their running backs.
2 picks and a fumble.
Yeah.
Either. Yeah, it's
I don't know, like,
As Madden would say, if you turn the ball over 3 times, you're generally going to lose a game.
yeah.
thanks, Madden.
Yep, thanks, man.
I guess let's just keep that note in mind that like Trujillo is a potential playoff team still potentially looking for a quarterback. Kind of a similar situation with Cody has, except for I'd feel better about Jones because of his upside. God, am I saying that out loud?
Yes, you are. Yes.
This is a big breakthrough for Tom.
Yeah. It's like an intervention.
Honestly, this is kind of making me rethink how we valued QBs in the past. Just because, comparing Trujillo's team against mine, right? Patrick Mahomes is probably one of my biggest difference makers in QB compared to his QB as his biggest weakness by far. So we're roughly equal teams, but that one position gains me 20 points a week almost. So yeah, I can't imagine it'd be too hard for him to get a QB. It's just about trading for one, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe he should stop trying to do tryouts and actually trying to make a trade. The Dallas offense looks unbelievable. They're looking like a clear contender in the NFC. And part of that reason is because Dak Prescott is a god. And because Dak Prescott is a god, Amari Cooper is also a fantasy god. He held in 6 receptions, 88 yards, and 2 touchdowns against the Miami Dolphins. Caveat. But Cooper is the clear wide receiver 1 there. And that's really, really great for a guy like Trujillo.
Yeah, he's nuts, honestly. Last year, I believe he had the biggest separation from cornerbacks of any receiver. 4 touchdowns in 3 games. I mean, does he end at 16 touchdowns? There's a legitimate chance, I think. I would put the over-under at probably 13 or 14, which coming into this year I would not have.
God, that gives me $0 bettability.
I know. It's a good line.
It's a good line.
But yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know if he'll probably end about top 10 just because hasn't had 10 targets in a game yet, which I think you need to be that top tier, but he's a touchdown receiver on a great offense. So
Yeah.
If you do want to build some sort of negativity out of him, he's faced 3 very, very, very easy defenses.
Sure.
The Giants, Washington, and Miami. He's
Yes.
literally faced 2 of the worst 3 teams in the league. And I mean, he put up good stats against them, and unfortunately, as much as I would love to bet against you, looking at the rest of his schedule, I don't really see anybody besides maybe Minnesota in Week 10.
It's funny because weeks 4 and 5 are 2 tough matchups. New Orleans into Green Bay is actually really, really difficult
It's
for the Cowboys.
I think it's mediocre difficulty to me. And I don't think
Saints are a top 10 defense. Now the Packers looking like they're top 10
are the Saints a
defense
top
this
10
year.
defense?
Yeah.
FTP.
Generally, I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, most people think the Saints are a top 10 defense going to the season unless something has changed that I'm not
To
aware
me,
of.
they're both, yeah. If they are, they're lower top 10.
Yeah.
Debatably, 10 through 15. I mean, they're
But
fine
we're talking
defenses.
about he's went from playing bottom 20 or 10
I agree.
to. So yeah, anyway, I guess my only point with that is that I guess I was trying to piggyback off of what you were saying, and that Another player to keep tabs on is Cooper. Let's talk about him next week and see how he does against New Orleans. And then again after Green Bay, because then he'll go back to, then you're right, it's cake after that, because then it's New York, the Jets. So yeah, I don't know. I'm high on Cooper. A lot of people were going to the season, but Prescott is the story for me, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Yep,
I 100% agree.
So Hilton, TY variety, got 20.5 points after getting 8 receptions, 65 yards, and a touchdown against Atlanta. Now, again, similar to the whole Dak Prescott situations, but tying every good receiver, there's normally a pretty good quarterback, and Brissett has looked fairly average, though in this case I think is a bit of the difference, and Hilton is just clearly the number one guy, which I think is just great for Hilton's value, right?
I think it is great. Honestly, if you look at his stat lines, I think they're very, very close to Amari Cooper. Yeah. But I think Hilton takes a way bigger regression. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think he's... What's his highest touchdown total he's ever had in a year? Do you guys know?
Oh,
I mean,
God, more trivia questions.
Is it 9 or 10? I mean, it can't be too much, right? And he's already at 4 touchdowns. I think that's really what's keeping him afloat. I mean, like, he's still been fine every game. But, like, I don't think that's going to continue, honestly.
T.Y. Hilton in his rookie season had 7 touchdowns, and in his third season had 7 touchdowns.
Okay. That's my point. He's at 4 through 3 games with a worse quarterback.
Yeah.
There's no way that continues.
But target share is really high.
I mean, it's fine. It's not top tier level.
No, but it is. I mean, again, with respect to his career, 2016 was his most targets when he had 155, played all 16 games, and that nets to about a little less than 10. And he's getting more than 10, I think, per game, isn't he?
No,
he's
he's
only
getting
one
a
game
little.
Oh,
of
just
10.
the one game? Oh,
Yeah.
it's
He's
the
at
touchdowns.
10, 9, and
6,
6, so relatively
so
negligible.
just his career average.
So he's probably around 8 or 9.
But my point is, you take off 2 of those touchdowns. Sure, he's still a good receiver, but he's like low wide receiver 1, high wide receiver 2, compared to mid to high wide receiver 1. And I still think that's too high. I think he ends like high to mid wide receiver 2.
But isn't there a reason for optimism as a Hilton owner after seeing Luck go out and retire, and still seeing Hilton get the target share and actually catching good balls and getting touchdowns? I mean, what if this is Hilton's 10 touchdown year?
I mean, yes. Okay. So let's take one of the best quarterbacks of our generation, get rid of him, and say the receiver is going to get better. That's what we're saying here, because I don't think that's possible.
Right. I don't think that's happening.
I don't think he ends higher than he would have if Andrew Luck was here.
No, but he could have gone way down the shitter. I guess my point.
Yeah. This is lower than I think he'll end lower than he should have with Andrew Luck.
Yes.
But higher than people thought starting the year.
Okay, so we agree.
So yes, there is optimism. That's true.
We had like $15 bets last week. I can't get damn money.
I know.
So TJ Hawkinson, resident Lions fan reporting here, Tom Brumbaugh, he only had 1 point with 1 reception and 1 yard. And reiterating why I hate PPR. But TJ Hawkinson, again, they're figuring out that he was really talented. Again, like the same thing that the Lions doubled Zach Ertz, and Hawkinson was not doubled as much as Ertz was. But for some reason, offenses are identifying Hawkins as a huge threat because, like, I think the thing about the Lions offense is that they have 3 just solid guys, but then they have a tight end that's big, massive Hawk. And so they're like reasonably trying to prevent him from doing anything. And Hawkinson ran a decent amount of routes. I can't remember the percentage because I looked it up, but he was on the field obviously way more than typical rookies are. And I guess, where am I going with this? I'm going with this that if I'm owning TJ Hawkinson, I would start him against Kansas City.
I mean, who's your replacement? That's kind of the question.
On his team, he has Jared Cook and Gesicki. And I guess, obviously, then he's starting Hawkinson, I guess. So I guess maybe this isn't a debate.
I mean, you could start Jared Cook.
You think so?
I think what's happening now is what's happened to every single rookie tight end in the history of the football league, is that they're just not good as a rookie. And like, I think he's better than most like rookie tight ends. And like, if you want to start him, I don't fault you. But I mean, I can't remember the exact amount, but rookie tight ends have never been good, ever.
All right. Without touchdowns, Hawkinson scores 10 points this week against Kansas City. Without touchdowns, because the variance.
I'm not going to bet against that, I don't think.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's like 60 yards and 4 receptions.
Yeah.
If you said 15 without touchdowns, I would. But
No, I can't do that.
That's kind of a
Oh,
lot.
he's a startable tight end then.
He is. If you want to, I said if you want to start him, that's fine.
Okay.
But like, I wouldn't put him for this year specifically. I wouldn't put him anywhere near that top tier.
Okay. So let's just write this down. Who are you guys starting between Cook and, because you're not starting Gesicki, between Cook and Hawkinson, Cody, go this next week going into Detroit?
I'm starting Hawkinson just because of the fact that they're playing KC. They're going to be down by a lot. They're just going to be throwing the ball a ton. And I think he has higher potential than either of those guys. And when I'm playing these weeks, I like to have the high potential because that's kind of what wins you week, especially with the tight end position. I mean, it's not like Cook has been doing any better either. So I'd rather take the guy that has high upside versus the guy that's been just pretty mediocre.
Have you changed your mind yet, Sam?
Yes, I have. I
Okay.
actually agree with you after looking at Cook's stats this year. He's been absolutely atrocious.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be happy to start Hawk, but I mean, he'll probably end top 12, which is nothing really to be proud of or ashamed of at the tight end role. So,
All right. So Trujillo, I dare you not to start Hawkinson now and just prove us all wrong and
I
start
mean,
Cook.
here's one for $1 bet. I haven't
Okay.
even looked at who they're playing, but Austin Hooper or TJ Hawkinson, because I would take that bet.
I need to know who they're playing. Hooper or Hawkinson for this week?
Yes.
Or just, all right.
Or in general, I would take the full season as well.
Okay.
Atlanta's playing Tennessee.
All right. I will take Hawkinson against Kansas City.
Okay, deal.
All right. Hooper has looked great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he hasn't
Do
looked great,
we
but he's
count
just
touchdowns or no?
no touchdowns. I don't like that. I like just no touchdowns. The actual consistent part of fantasy football. All right. So now it's time to talk about me. And I creamed Laramie. It wasn't even close. I mean, sorry, Laramie. You know, I really do want to have you on the show, but it might be kind of hard with a bunch of cream all over your face from this matchup.
Jesus.
Yeah. Wow.
What a weird intro. So
Let's start with the team that really matters.
all right. So I scored 171 points. Last week we talked about how I needed
170.98, not 171. Want to be very clear about that.
we talked about last week how I needed a bounce back week, and I definitely call this a bounce back week. I was in the top 5. I think I was exactly 5th. So
So you were bounced back to average. Nice.
yeah, right. But I mean, like, hey, that really is encouraging. It still baffles me how I haven't had one guy just like totally bust out, which is kind of the difference between me scoring like this score and like 200. But Juju Smith-Schuster scored 20 points, and yet I'm still concerned about him. And this is what we were talking about before the show too, that I identified him as like a sell high, quote unquote, because like I think 20 points is high because if you watch the game, long story short, the Pittsburgh offense just looks boring and awful. And,
Yes, they do.
and like Mason Rudolph isn't necessarily even that bad. It's just like the supporting cast and the play calling. And like, it just seems like they honestly are baffled with what to do without Roethlisberger. So I don't know. That extends to Connor. The only guy that it really doesn't extend to, in my opinion, is Vance McDonald.
He had a terrible week
Yeah.
too.
He did. I agree. But moving forward, I don't know.
I'm concerned about every single Pittsburgh player. I'm going to be honest about that. Like, wherever I put them up as standards, I think each of them take like a 5-point hit.
Yep.
And I'm
Except for Vance. Vance going into the
Well,
season wasn't rated very highly.
except for
I had
him.
him at like tight end 8.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where do you have him now? Like tight end 13?
No, like tight end 8 probably.
Oh.
Maybe a little bit.
So,
Yeah,
lower.
that's-
so he
that's
doesn't
my
really
point, though.
So he doesn't really take a hit.
That's my point. That Vance
Oh,
McDonald's
yeah,
the
yeah.
one that didn't reasonably take
yeah, that's true.
take a hit.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's talk about Sammy Watkins, who is interesting to talk about. I forgot we identified to talk about him this week because he only had 10 points. Again, he's getting the targets, but I said this before the show, and so bear with me, you guys, because I'm going to say it again. It just seems like the Kansas City offense is so good because Andy Reid is such a genius that even the wide receiver 1 doesn't necessarily get all the targets because you just draw all the coverage from the wide receiver 1, and then Patrick Mahomes is so good that he can still be prolific throwing to Demarcus Robinson and McCole Hardman, and obviously Travis Kelce is still there. Now, that's not to take away from Robinson's value or Hardman's value. It's just to say that this offense doesn't struggle with literally anyone playing wide receiver, it seems like. And so Watkins doesn't, to me, meaningfully stand out, whereas a guy like Tyreek Hill does. And so I guess going back to what you said last week, Hill is different than Watkins. You can't just substitute Watkins for Hill. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's clearly worse than Hill. Like, there's no doubt, but he's still a good player. Like,
Right.
Hill, I'm fine with as my wide receiver 1. Watkins without Hill in, I don't know if I'm fine with as my wide receiver 1, but still wide receiver 2 at least.
Yeah.
And like, the way I view the Kansas City Chiefs is they have a big ass pie. So like any little piece that anyone can get is legitimate. I mean, they have week to week, they usually will probably have 2 decent starting running backs, probably the best tight end in the league, and then 3 good receivers now that McCole and Robinson have both showed up. Like, Watkins will be fine. If his floor is 10, you know what I mean? He'll have some weeks that he gets 52.8, for instance.
Right.
So
Yeah, and in that same game, Marco, did you have a thought on that?
No, I was going to pretty much agree. The only difference I would have is I only feel confident in one running back that they have on that team. That's it.
McCoy.
Yep.
And we already talked about that.
I do want to point out that McCoy gets less than 50% of the snaps.
Yeah, but he's still the only one that really is given any carries.
I think he's been injured through some of that as well.
I mean, every game he's at less than 50% of the snaps.
Sure.
Well, yeah, the first game makes sense. I mean, he really didn't start until this week. This is like the first week that he's actually like officially started because Damian Williams was still playing.
That's true.
The last couple weeks.
And Damian Williams was fine when he played.
Was he?
I think he was fine for at least one game, but I mean, either way, whoever gets the touches, I'm happy with. And I don't think you need carries. I think you need receptions,
Sure.
which they do.
All right, so McCoy or Williams, ROS, rest of season.
I mean,
McCoy.
who's injured? Like, are they both?
Yeah.
Are they both playing?
Prorated based off how many games they play.
Yeah, I would take Williams. So we can bet on that.
Yeah, I would,
Yes, I made a
definitely take,
dollar
I would
bet.
definitely take McCoy.
Yes. And there goes the dollar bet again. Nice. We're getting some good ones in this week. All right. So just a quick note. In that same game, Marquise Brown had 9 targets and only 49 yards. And some people are going to say Lamar Jackson's the fault for that. I'm not one of those people. I still love Lamar and I love his rushing floor. So let's talk about a really interesting one. Not that interesting, but he's a player and his name is Leonard Fournette. He had at one point in the game like 12 carries for like negative 15 yards, and then he ripped off a 69-yard carry that probably should have been a touchdown, but he wasn't fast enough to finish it. But he's still heavily involved in the receiving game with 8 targets. I guess the story behind Leonard Fournette is he is probably the number 1 running back in the league that is not as talented as how much he gets targets and carry shares in. And so I'm happy to have him because they're going to keep giving the ball to him, but he's not nearly worth it as some of these other guys that get the ball as much as he does. Yes?
Yeah. No, I mean, he's a talented running back. I'm surprised they're using him so much in the passing game, but it obviously helps him a ton. Maybe it's having that rookie quarterback that just needs the dump off option. Maybe it's because they're just running a better offense than people expected, but I don't know. I mean, his highest rushing total is 66 yards, yet he's still playing like mediocre just because of the receptions. So I think that's nice that it adds to his floor so much.
Yeah. Worth noting that he was also hit behind the line 9 times last game. And yes, you would point out, he should have been evading some of those tackles, but you can't expect him to evade all 9 of them. And that was the most, I think, from any running back last week getting hit behind the line. Except for maybe like the Dolphins, I'm guessing. I don't know. I read it somewhere, I think, but I might just be making that up.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting case where this is with Leonard Fournette. It's like he was always successful because he was getting like 25 to 30 carries a game. Like it was outrageous. And now that when we kind of see his carries a little bit regress, we see obviously, which makes sense, a much more regressed Leonard Fournette. So I think it's quite clear to me that he's like definitely kind of fallen off that high tier running back 1 that people used to have him off, especially with the amount of carries. I get that he's getting more reception work, but I don't know. If he's not getting those carries, he definitely loses some value in my eyes.
I'm happy to have him as RB2.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, he's not breaking into that echelon, unless he has a great week in which I could already probably see myself being optimistic. I'm looking for that one week that he's actually good.
Sure. Makes sense.
Next week could be that week against Denver.
Yeah.
For sure. And a guy on my opponent's team, so now let's talk about Laramie. He scored 150 points, and someone that did have that week that he was looking forward to was Sterling Shepard. He had 29 points because of 7 receptions and 100 yards with a touchdown, and they also went to him for a 2-point conversion. Now, what's Shepard's value for the rest of the season? Tate's coming back week 5, which is worth noting. Daniel Jones is no longer Eli Manning. I mean, there's a lot of variables here, so are you comfortable plugging him in week to week with all these variables?
I think he's still I think he's a good wide receiver 3. And I don't put him any higher or lower than that. That's kind of my thoughts. I'm not sold on this yet. Sterling Shepard has had good games in the past, and he just does that occasionally from time to time. I do think Daniel Jones is a great addition for him. But like you said, with Golden Tate coming back after this next week, I mean, that could change the whole dynamic of the offense, depending on how they want to do it. Plus, Daniel Jones has already shown favoritism to Evan Ingram, I think, a little bit. I mean, given he did get more targets, but again, it was against the Bucs, so I need a little bit bigger sample size.
I couldn't agree with you more, honestly. I'm not convinced of Daniel Jones. Okay, let's put the over-under at how many more 300-yard games he gets the rest of the season. Because I'll put it at one. One game. So one more 300-yard game is a push.
Wait, Daniel Jones?
Daniel Jones.
Okay. Sure, yeah. I'll agree. Yes.
I mean, do you want to take either side of that?
Oh, I mean, like, I don't think he's going to get more than one more.
Yeah.
That's not far enough, because I would have put it at either 1 or 2, but it's not.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And you can't expect on many 100-yard receiving games if your quarterback isn't going to produce that much when you're not the number one target, which in my opinion, it's clearly Evan Ingram still. Like, I agree with you. I think Sterling Shepard, high on wide receiver 3, maybe low on wide receiver 2, just based on them not really having anyone else. Do you guys think Saquon being out helps or hurts Sterling Shepard?
Oh, all right. So this is the logic, right? With Barkley out, they're not going to stack the box as much. And so because of that, the passing game should suffer. I would argue that's the thing. And now, God, I don't want to argue for this, but I do think Golden Tate probably gets a huge hike when he comes back, in addition to Evan Ingram.
Because they get more targets.
Because they get more targets in a PPR league.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
I mean, kind of. So it hurts Sterling Shepard.
Yes. In other words, yes. Yeah, a lot of things really point to Sterling Shepard going down, in other words. Like, at least 3 different points. So, what if I told you that Laramie's wide receiver 1 was Sterling Shepard? You'd be disappointed.
I mean, I would say it's Tyrell Williams, but...
Would you? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, after what we were just talking about, yes.
No, I just mean, like, yeah, I don't know. Even after the first game or two. Just, I mean,
Yeah,
he's
that's
on the field 95% of the
That's
time.
fair.
Yeah.
He's going to, other than Darren Waller, he's the most targeted player on that team.
That's fair.
I think he'll be fine.
Especially after AB left, so...
Yes, exactly.
Either way, Tyrell Williams as your number 1 wide receiver is
Not great either.
Yeah,
No.
right.
I think he's a fine play. So
Yeah.
So he also started Laramie, that is. He also started Mark Andrews, and he had his first down week, indicating that maybe he is human, because in some ways Lamar Jackson also indicated that he was kind of human. But he still had 7 targets. To be honest, I didn't really watch much of that game, so I don't know. Do you guys have more insight into that whole situation?
I didn't watch it either, but honestly, I think he'll be terrible. Laramie, I would trade him to me.
Don't listen to the salesman.
I think he'll be fine. I mean, one thing that is kind of concerning is about a 50% snap rate, which is kind of surprising, actually, with how many targets he gets, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
7 targets when you're on the field half the time.
Well, they have another guy in that offense, and I'm just blanking on his name.
I don't know.
That they...
Hayden Hurst, I believe.
Is it? Yeah, that might be it.
Maybe not, though. But
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you
So
think,
anyway.
Cody?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a fluke. I don't think it's funny because I think both sides have kind of been flukes. Honestly, I think 26 has been flukish, and I think the 4-point has been flukish. I think to me he falls somewhere within that 15-point range, and
Yeah.
just right there evenly.
So, like tight end, like 6.
Yeah. I still think he's up there
Like a
for
great-
sure.
Like a great tight end.
Yeah, he's
Not-
still a
not-
great
not
tight
elite.
end. I'm just saying, like, both sides have been kind of like if you just saw the 26 games in a row, you easily could have jumped to a conclusion that, oh, this guy's going to be a top 3 tight end this year. And it's like, well, pump the brakes on that a little bit. But then after this week, I'm sure there could be somebody saying he's not even top 10. It's like, well, pump the brakes on that too. I disagree with that as well.
So after the Evan Ingram tier of tight ends, would you take anyone else in Dynasty above Mark Andrews after the top 4, assuming Evan Ingram's in that tier?
You could argue Waller.
You
Based
could.
on how he's good.
I think
Not-
that's a fine argument.
Gone.
I don't think I win a dynasty league.
You could still argue like guys like Hunter Henry.
You sure could.
Yeah,
So-
or OJ Howard if you wanted to. But I think Andrews is just...
Andrews on it. I don't know. So yes, to answer your question, yes, you could argue a lot of guys.
Yeah, I'd probably take Andrews, but yeah, I think he certainly fits in that tier.
For sure. So we talked about who Laramie started this week, but a man who was really highly touted going into this year that he didn't start was Joe Mixon. And he had 15 carries for 61 yards, 2 receptions, 34 yards, and 1 touchdown receiving. For a net line of 18 points, I mean, I don't know should he have benched Joe Mixon? Should he bench Joe Mixon moving forward?
I mean, he was banged up. I think it's a fine call knowing his other running backs. I could have seen it either way. I probably would have started Mixon just because of the name value.
Yeah.
But like, he really was banged up, and I know a lot of people, like a lot of experts, said flex play at most. Mm-hmm. So really, I mean, when you have Sanders and Montgomery, but going forward, God, I don't know. I'm not a fan of Joe Mixon this year. Like, I don't think he ends. I think he ends at best mid-tier running back 2.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's where he's actually going to end up. I mean, I think slowly his snap percentage is increasing a little bit. He put up a decent game against a good Buffalo Bills defense. I know he just said the first couple weeks he just wasn't feeling himself, and that might have been bugged by a little bit of an injury too. So I don't know. I think it would be an RB2. I think mid-tier RB2 is where I'll put him.
Cool. So a slight hit, but nothing like meaningful moving forward.
No, and I mean, but the thing about Mixon though is that even if you want to put him there, he still carries that potential to be a RB number 1 to me. Like, that isn't gone from him. I mean, he's only 23 years old. Are we just like willing to throw away everything that's happened the last 2 years because of 2 games? I'm not.
I mean, I kind of am based on they have like a bottom 2 line in the entire league.
Yeah.
And their game script is almost always going to be throwing, and he's actually not that great of it. Like, he can catch the ball okay, but they really don't target him much. So I just think that with him being banged up, I don't know. It's cause for concern in my opinion.
Yeah, to me, it's cause for concern this year. I think in a dynasty standard, it's not really extreme cause for concern for me.
Also, you mentioned he's only 23. He already has about 450 carries under his belt.
Does he?
Yeah. He's played 2 full seasons plus change. So
right.
I don't know. I bet you he has like 3, maybe 4 years left before he really starts to decline. Maybe he'll be in the league a little longer than that.
I mean, that seems fine. That seems about reasonable for most running backs.
Worth monitoring for sure.
But yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to move on.
Yep.
I was going to say I won 171 to 150. I got my first win of the season. I'm happy with that.
First and last.
And then now we have funny. And now we have 2 teams that are on polar ends on the spectrum as far as how they're performing this year, and that's Michael Reed and Adamy. And Adamy still has his manual in the mail. He's hashtag jank for Judy.
Jerk for Judy.
That's good too.
No, I'm fine with that.
Jank for Judy.
Yep.
His team is jank. So let's get started talking about Adam's team right away here, and let's talk about Kyler Murray, who finally seemed to get involved in the running game, which with 8 carries and 69 yards, that's encouraging to see. He still had a reasonable game as a quarterback with 30 of 43 for 173 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did throw his first 2 picks of the season, I believe.
Second and third.
Second and third, because of course the Lions picked him off one of those times. And yeah, I mean, I'm still encouraged by Murray as his first 3 games. I mean, any reason not to be from your guys' perspective?
No. I think he'll be great.
He should only get better too as his line improves. I mean, that last game he took 8 sacks, which is quite a few.
That's a lot of
sacks. And I mean, like, I'm sure you can attribute that to even why he's had 4 turnovers so far this year. You know, the 3 picks and a fumble. The
pressure.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of pressure. So I think as he continuously gets better lines in the coming years, which I hope that's what the Cardinals start drafting for, I can only see his stock going up.
Yeah, it kind of looks like the prophecy of making him the young version of Russell Wilson is looking to actually come true.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we talked about the Chiefs a little bit earlier because we talked about Sammy Watkins and how this giant pie metaphor that Sam made of the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid. Now Adam is starting 2 of those guys. And they combined for 33.7 points, and that's McCole Hardman and Demarcus Robinson. Actually, both of them are having back-to-back reasonable weeks.
You're talking about the 2 worst pieces of that pie.
I am, but they're still amazing. Now, there's not much really interesting to talk about as far as those two individually, but I want to talk about from a macro perspective with Adam's team. What am I doing with this information moving forward with Demarcus Robinson and Hardman?
I would sell DeMarcus Robinson.
Okay.
Hard.
Yep.
Because I think he can fit into a lot of people's teams right now, but I don't think he has the long-term outlook that McCole Hardman does. Like, I value McCole Hardman as a long-term mid-wide receiver too, honestly. I think he'll add a lot of value. But, like, is DeMarcus Robinson going to start over Watkins, Hill, or Hardman, assuming Watkins stays on the team?
No.
So, I mean, sell him while you can. If he's putting up 15, 20 points a week, you can get some value for that.
Do you sell Hardman?
No.
Okay.
You hold on to him.
Yeah, I mean, like, what could you get? Could you get more than a first? Because I wouldn't sell for a first.
No, you should be able to get more than a first, theoretically.
Really? I mean, like,
A first and a third or something, or like a first and a half. I don't know.
But even with the first and a third, it's not even worth it.
I mean, his value is improved, theoretically, from where he was drafted.
yeah, but he was drafted at, what, 7th or 8th? And
108.
A lot of people thought that was too high even.
It was because Tyreek Hill ended up playing.
And I guess the question is, would someone give more than a first for him? Because
Yes. Right.
I don't know if anyone would, especially knowing if Tyreek comes back, McCole Hardman takes a huge hit.
Right.
At least for
Well,
this
but
year.
that's the question, right? Does Hardman take a huge hit? Or does Andy Reid say, man, I just love having fast motherfuckers, and I want Hill out there, I want Hardman out there, and I want Watkins out there. And Robinson is the one that takes the biggest hit. And to your point, I mean,
I still think one of them takes a hit, regardless.
Right.
Because I mean, we've seen Hardman and Robinson have, good games the last 2 weeks, and Sammy Watkins on the other end has been the one taking the hit, so to say. Like, I mean, Watkins has only had back-to-back 10-point games, which is pretty disappointing.
yeah. Saquon Barkley is out for the next 6 weeks or could be more. It's kind of, he's still going to see an ankle specialist, but it's a high ankle sprain. That's the initial diagnosis. And the funny thing is, I was watching that game when it happened, and the announcer was talking about how he should be the running back that's immune to those kind of injuries because he's so built with tree trunks for legs that you don't see guys like that get those kind of injuries. But here he goes, getting his first injury of his career, and now Wayne Gallman is also someone that has more value than expected on Adam's team. So now, obviously, rhetorically, Adam should sell Wayne Gallman to someone that needs a running back?
Yes.
Okay.
I say wait a week or two, in my personal opinion. I think this last week, with him only getting 5 carries and 13 yards, I don't think he can quite get the value for him that would be what anyone would want to give up yet. But I think you give it 1 or 2 weeks and you let him have his good games, and then somebody would be willing to buy more.
I actually completely disagree with that.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're talking about a clear backup, right? After Saquon comes back 6 weeks from now, like Wayne Gallman, you could put up literally 300 yards a game and he's not going to be the starter. I guess one question that I don't know, is there any other running back that has a chance to steal that job?
No, I don't think so.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that's why people are so high on him right now.
Yes. And then if you wait 2 full weeks, you're using a third of his total value.
Yeah.
Which to me is all that matters. It's that he's playing. It's like Pollard, right?
Yep.
The only reason he had value is because Zeke was going to be out. So you got to sell while he's playing. That's my opinion, at least. I would literally sell immediately. Try to skim a late first for him, someone that's trying to compete, and move on with your life.
I think
guess-
even getting a second for him would be
Yeah,
amazing.
second would be
value.
fine. too.
Because nobody's going to give up
Absolutely.
a first for him.
No.
I mean, I
Probably
wouldn't.
not, no.
I mean, not in the way that Philip Lindsay went for a first.
But I actually think this is the perfect example of a symbiotic trade. Give up a second if you need a running back and hope that Barkley's out for a long time and get good, potentially RB2 numbers out of Gallman for, 6-7 weeks for a second, right? I mean, I don't know. That's what I'm doing.
If you have to fill a position, for sure.
Exactly. So Adam is still tanking for Tua and janking for Judy, but Mike Reed is, holy crap, he came out of nowhere. Now he's 3-0, but it wasn't just because he played Adam. It's because he scored 195 points rounded up, and part of that is because he had a man by the name of Russell Wilson score 47 effing points. I mean, 2 rushing touchdowns, 50 completions. We have Adam starting the younger version of Russell Wilson, but
Yeah.
Russell Wilson looking like the better version.
32 completions, 50 attempts.
I don't know what I said.
You said 50 completions.
400 yards, though,
Yeah.
too. That's a lot.
Yeah.
If only it was 50 completions. But is this anything that's worth noting, really? I mean, what's going on there?
This is probably going to be the best game he ever has for the rest of his career, fantasy-wise. I mean, He just rushing, he has 17 points. Like he's quick, but he really doesn't run that much in his past.
No.
And he doesn't throw for 400 yards very often either. And I can't believe he combined both of them, and they still lost the game.
Yeah, the biggest thing is the attempts. I mean, he jumped up to 50 with coming from only 20 and 35 the weeks previous to this. This is known for being a running team, which I think they're going to continue doing, especially with Chris Carson or Rashad Penny. I think the game script just happened to call for it. It was a back and forth game. I think if this is a normal game with Drew Brees, he doesn't score anything close to this, in my opinion, because I think Drew Brees controls the clock a lot better than Teddy Bridgewater does. Yeah.
But they were still playing down. I mean, but to your guys' point, there's nothing really to talk about because it's Russell Wilson. He's still a good quarterback.
Yeah.
He's still good. But you just take away the rushing touchdowns and yards, and he's a 30-point game, which is good, but we're not talking about it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
100% agree.
And that's just complete variance. Does he get 2 more rushing touchdowns the entire year? Probably about that, but not much more.
Right.
Right. Now, I know that Mike, a little while ago, before he was truly sure how he wanted to mold his team, he was looking to pawn off a guy like Kerryon Johnson, even though he's only 22 years old. Because I know this because I got an offer, and I think I remember hearing someone else got an offer for Kerryon Johnson. But maybe Mike knew something we didn't, because Kerryon Johnson has this week he had 20 carries, awesome as far as what you want for your RB2, but he only had 36 yards of it and a touchdown with 1 reception and 7 yards. So I'm going to take over here because I'm the West and Lions fan. I watched the whole game, and the problem here is that for whatever reason, everyone thought the Lions could run the ball, and they can't run the ball. They got rid of C.J. Anderson. Ty Johnson is getting a lot more attention. This week he already had like 6 more something, or 6 either carries or targets. And the weird thing is, pass protection wise, the Lions are like top 10, but run protection they're like the 25th according to like Pro Football Focus. So it settles them to somewhere around a reasonable offensive line, but they just can't run block. So am I concerned about Kerryon Johnson? Yes, because of the offensive line of the Lions. But am I not concerned? Yes, because they have played 2 really good defensive lines in the Eagles and the Chargers 2 weeks in a row. And Kerryon Johnson, from the eye test perspective, still looks like a beast. Like, he still does like the Madden juke move, the Madden spin move. You know, you press B and it just like insta spins. Like, Johnson does that, and I love it. So, yeah, that's my take. I don't know if you guys disagree with any of that.
Here's what scares me a little bit, and I'd have to look at it from strictly fantasy purposes. What scares me a little bit about Kerryon Johnson for at least just the rest of the year, maybe not dynasty-wise, is the fact he has 2 more games against an elite run defense than the Minnesota Vikings. He has 2 more games against an elite run defense in the Chicago Bears. He has 2 more games against the Green Bay Packers, who have been shown that they're having a better defense. I mean, that's already 6 games, and that equals 9. So you get another 6 after that. So I guess that's my kind of concern with him a little bit, is that he's going to still be facing a lot of those run defenses in the future going forward here, which I think will limit his value. Enough. I mean, to me, like, at least when he was coming in this, I thought he had the potential to be a high RB2. Debatably, if he went off, like, a low RB1, if he was just, like, really talented. Because he has that talent level, but now I feel, I'm, like, RB2, possibly low RB2, for me personally.
Yeah, Sam, what do you think?
I agree with you guys. I mean, it's not going to get easier from here. It's surprising with the amount of attempts he's got. He hasn't averaged yards at all. I'm also surprised he hasn't gotten involved in the passing game more, because I thought that was one of his strengths.
For sure.
I expected slightly less carries and, like, honestly, 2 to 3 more receptions a game, which could be a huge difference maker.
So he's a guy that I'm waiting for at the end of the season. He has a down year, and it's not going to be me necessarily, but if anyone else in the world listens to this, he's a dynasty buy low after this season in my eyes. Like, I think he can only go up from here, but I do agree that he probably won't have a great season. So, last guy we want to talk about as far as Reed's team is Cooper Kupp, because we haven't talked about the Rams at all today. And Cooper Kupp is clearly the wide receiver 1 with Jared Goff. I've talked about in the past how Jared Goff is a completely different quarterback with Cooper Kupp. And Goff seems to have settled somewhere between bad Goff and good Goff of last year, and he's just kind of playing more consistent. And because of that, Kupp is just raking in the targets. And we did talk about the Rams earlier, because we talked about Robert Woods. That was like an hour ago. But Cup is great in fantasy.
Yeah, he's very, very good. I don't remember this stat either, but I believe the last 16 games he's actually played during that span, he would have been the wide receiver 7, which I don't think anyone was valuing him at that basically at any point in his career.
No.
Given I would still bet that he won't continue like that. But I mean, does he end as a wide receiver 1? Maybe. Like, he has a legitimate chance at this point the way he's playing, and it looks like he's the wide receiver 1 on an elite offense.
And the targets he's getting are just consistent. Like, they're consistently around 10.
Lowest of 9 on the year so far. That's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, he was a second-round draft pick when he was taken, but he's far exceeding that second-round pick, and he actually does look like the part of someone that could have been taken in the first round, really. So good to see out of him, and Mike is definitely happy with that because he scored 195 points this weekend. Is cruising along. No! Okay, sorry. My computer just did a weird flash out on me. I thought it was dying. I have plenty of battery left. Sorry about that.
That was terrifying.
So let's move on from that matchup. And it seems like every week we end with talking about Obi. And I don't know why it is, but he actually won again this week. It's far below the average.
Lucky again.
Yeah,
Yep.
lucky again.
No
Far
kidding.
below the average, scoring only 158 points. And, I mean, we've already talked about with our concerns of a lot of Obi's players. So one of the guys we haven't really talked about, though, is Baker Mayfield. Now, he didn't start him this week, obviously, because he has Aaron Rodgers. But I think we wanted to talk about him just because he's an interesting player, and he was going into the season. Obi had looked to have 2 top 5 quarterbacks. Dynasty wise, is that still even true?
Yes. Well, I would put Baker as a top 5 dynasty quarterback. Aaron Rodgers, not.
Okay.
I like Baker. Honestly, he's had, sure, a couple of pretty mediocre games so far this season, but his offense is too elite. Number 1 overall draft pick. Had one of the greatest rookie QB seasons ever. I don't know. I'm not going to discount him from 3 bad games.
Their offensive line scares me, at least for the rest of the season. I think I'm fine with agreeing that he's a top 5 dynasty quarterback going forward, but rest of the season, I don't put him top 5, and I don't even know if I put him top 10. If I do, it's lower top 10. But his offensive line is atrocious. Aaron Donald got in there so easily and just constantly. I mean, it is Aaron Donald, but like, even still, like, I don't know, they don't look good. And I think that's kind of the reason you've seen Nick Chubb actually also kind of semi-struggle, has been the fact that that offensive line is just like atrocious.
Yeah. Also, play calling hasn't been great.
Yeah.
But from I watched a lot of that game, and it just seemed like Mayfield. Honestly, he looked like he's having a sophomore slump because there was several times where he just looked lost and he didn't know what to do, and there were so many times where he was just one reading it, which is like the classic thing you don't want to do as a sophomore guy now that has quote unquote experience. He looks like he's still just leaving the pocket whenever there's pressure. I don't know. I don't really know what to call him. Like, rest of season, I'm definitely not buying low. Dynasty, I don't even know if I'm buying low or not. I'm just holding, but I'm not selling. It's a weird situation.
Yeah, you're definitely not selling. I mean, if you could, I'd actually say if you're going from a dynasty perspective, I'd say buy. But
is everyone?
But
can
I
you
don't
even buy him low, right?
Right,
Like,
that's just it. I don't think there's any reason to. And kind of to your point, I mean, that's kind of the telltale signs of a bad offensive line is if a quarterback looks worried in the pocket, because if you're constantly being hit under like 2 seconds, all of a sudden it's 2 seconds, you have that mental clock in your head going off, and you're thinking, oh shit, I got to throw the football or else I'm about to be hit. And so that's why he probably looks like he's lost, because he's like, well, I need to get rid of the ball right now, and he's only doing one look, boom, and then he's running into issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Todd Gurley had 5 points this week, 14 carries, 43 yards, but he got a tackle in there.
Nice.
Which gave him 20% of his points. Sean McVay said after the game, quote, "We need to work on our play calling revolving Todd Gurley." And I don't know what that means, because whenever I think Todd Gurley play calling, I just picture the classic pitch outside and let him like try to find space and be patient. So apparently they must not be doing that enough, or I guess I don't. What does that mean? Like, why is Todd? I mean, what do we think about Todd Gurley moving forward?
Well, it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
I mean, have people figured out Sean McVay, honestly?
Yeah,
Like, he
maybe.
was so good last year, and every player on the team was thriving. And, I mean, they haven't had, like, incredibly hard defensive matchups to play against, and Todd Gurley's highest week is 15. I mean, and that was with a touchdown. Like, he's not getting involved in the passing game at all with 6 total targets in the year. I mean, that's what you expect from one game from him. I don't know. He has a chance to end as a running back 2, but I don't think he has a chance at running back 1 anymore.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say this is, for a lot of the guys we've talked about this week, or earlier, like an hour ago, we talked about, okay, let's keep tabs on him moving forward. This is a guy that we have been keeping tabs on, and I think we're finally in week 3 saying, yeah, we're officially concerned about Todd Gurley, not just this year, but next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. So I don't know. Even though Obi is famously still in love with Gurley and not concerned at all, I'd be interested to see if he's finally concerned.
Yeah, I'm definitely concerned with Gurley, especially with that workload. I mean, he's only 25, but he looks like he's like 27 or 28, honestly, with the way that they're running him right now. It looks very... I mean, he's played for already... This is already his 5th season. I mean, even though he's young in age, he's played a lot. He's gotten a lot of carries.
He's on the downhill of his prime now. I mean, he should still be up there based on his age and carries, but it's not going to get better from here like it could if he was 22.
No, and I mean, I do think a little bit too, again, from watching that game, they kind of were presented the same issue to me that that Cleveland was presented, and that was the fact that their O-line also didn't look that great. Myles Garrett got in there a ton of times and just caused mayhem. I mean, again, maybe it's flawed because these guys are going up against, like, say, a couple, like, I think they're both top 5, defensive linemen in the league right now, but still, the way that the ease that they were able to get in there is cause for concern to me.
Yeah, so to wrap up, 3 concerns with Todd Gurley. 1, Malcolm Brown. 2, Sean McVay play calling / just being potentially figured out. And 3, future injury risk with Todd Gurley.
Yep,
that's a lot of points. Fun fact: someone that is 24 years old as a rookie is Terry McLaurin. Didn't know that. He just turned 24 a couple weeks ago as a rookie. It's kind of weird, but he has been on a tear. Scary Terry is the best from our trivia question this last week. He's the best rookie wide receiver this year in PPR format. And I mean, are we buying into Terry McLaurin?
Yes.
Okay.
I would personally be willing to buy high at this point. I like him so much. Even with, you might say that, I mean, what is he averaging right now? 22 points a game, give or take, just looking at this. I'm still willing to bet on that production, which is insane to say, but like, he's getting consistent target share, consistent receptions, and he's got a touchdown every game. I think he's phenomenal.
And Case Keenum sucks.
Yeah,
yes,
he does.
So you buy high on because you hope Haskins comes in and he's the new Michael Thomas.
Yeah.
I think you could argue, right? I mean, in that way. So yeah, Cody, you agree?
Oh, 100%. I mean, even watching his last touchdown catch, Case Keenum was not putting his balls anywhere like close to where the wide receivers could just make easy receptions. I mean, that touchdown, he had to work for it. He literally had to jump over the guy's arm and essentially grab it and take it back. I'm 100% buying it. I think whenever Dwayne Haskins gets in the game, either next week or the week after that, is when he'll finally, really start exploding as a wide receiver. I fully buy him.
I don't know where O'Brien drafted him in our rookie draft. I assume he had to be second round probably.
It's either second or third.
I know it wasn't first because that's when he
Actually, it
drafted.
might have been third.
I think it might have been third.
It doesn't even matter to me. He's already the steal of the draft, and I don't think it's even close.
All right, so you're buying high. Number 1, I want to say, it makes me laugh at all the Vikings fans that are like, "Oh yeah, I wish they would have kept Case Keenum." Man. It's retarded.
Yep.
Number 2, I use retarded. Sorry, I apologize to anyone that's offended by that. I should stop saying that. Number 2,
it's not offensive. You're also retarded,
Oh,
so
that makes it
therefore,
okay.
you can say it.
Sweet, I didn't realize that.
Perfect.
So number 2, if you're buying him high, what's his price?
Man, I don't know. It's tough. I mean, I wouldn't give 2 firsts for him, but I would for sure give more than 1.
First and a second?
Probably.
Yeah, I don't think I disagree necessarily.
Yeah, I think he's very, very good.
The problem is I don't think Obi wants to lose him because he's like starting him, and he kind of needs to with AJ Green out. So I don't know. Maybe he'll be looking to sell him once AJ Green's back. Might be interesting.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Keep tabs on that one.
But then again, his wide receivers have always kind of traditionally been pretty weak. I think he's pretty much a hold
Holding
for
them?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but what about this? I mean, might have been easier when Antonio Brown was in play. But could he sell him to a rebuilding team for someone that has a veteran wide receiver? Like at this point in Dynasty, honest question, Adam Thielen or Terry McLaurin?
Ooh, McLaurin for sure. Wow, am I signing that?
That's what I'm
That
saying.
is, yeah.
If you're trading him to a rebuilding team, I don't know. Not to help Obi win or anything, but that's something I would consider.
Or if you really wanted to do it, Keenan Allen for Terry McLaurin. Not straight up. Build a package around that. Keenan Allen obviously still has way more value than Terry McLaurin, but if you're a rebuilding team like Matt, I mean, that's a great wide receiver to start off with right there.
I think another good comparison would be someone like Julio Jones, maybe even.
I would also rather have Julio Jones, though.
Agreed, but to Cody's point about like the whole package thing.
Yeah.
Regardless, it's a really interesting situation. Yep. It goes to show that those third round flyers can be valuable, and if you can get bulk third round for like a low end player, it's kind of worth it.
Maybe Mike Reed's doing it right.
Third and fourth.
He's got plenty next year.
Maybe he is, and Fowler was kind of doing it right by drafting Saquon Barkley. But then he just got wrecked by the bad RNG of fantasy football, and the football gods injured Saquon Barkley. We just talked about him last week, how he's like already already going to be a Hall of Famer just based on how good he looks. Luckily, this isn't the kind of injury that really affects you for your future career, but just sad, really sad.
It's very sad. I mean, The question to me, what do you do if you are Fowler at this point? Because technically, if the season ended today, Fowler is the sixth seed in the playoffs.
Yeah.
He is currently a playoff team, but his team is not deep at all. And
Right.
without debatably the best dynasty asset in the league most of the regular season, do you sell and try to rebuild? And if you do, who do you sell?
You sell Adam Thielen. That's the number one person you sell on that team. He had a chance to sell Antonio Brown during the offseason.
It's tough yet.
He had a chance to sell Antonio Brown even this last couple weeks. He didn't try to do anything with it. And now, in my mind, Antonio Brown just he's not worthless. You could still get capital for him.
Can you? Would you give a second?
I would.
Yeah.
Would you? I wouldn't.
I don't know if I'd give a second, but I think it's the same way you could technically get capital for Rob Gronkowski. It says if
Can I? Anyone?
I
You
would.
think-
mean, no one.
I
think
would.
AB and Gronkowski are different situations.
Sure. They are different situations, but I mean, like, I think for some of those guys, I mean, didn't somebody just like, I guess I don't know, maybe not. I think a 4th round pick for AB maybe would be fine. I mean, a 4th round pick doesn't matter, but it's still capital.
Is it? I mean, barely, I guess. But
Sure.
I just want to put out in Fowler's defense, for every AB situation, you have a Tyreek situation where people, when there was risk, were selling for seconds, and now they look like idiots.
Yeah.
Compared to this one just went the wrong way. So honestly, a bummer for him. Obviously, peak time to sell would have been right when he got traded to the Patriots.
Yeah, but I even think during the offseason, in my opinion, is when he could have started trying to trade him. As soon as he traded away Julio Jones, this is kind of like, in my mind, where it should have changed, where I kind of disagreed with his philosophy was, oh, I traded Julio Jones, therefore I don't want to trade another wide receiver. And to me, if you're trading Julio Jones away from your team, you either got to commit to that or not, because on his team, realistically, especially you think about if he added this year, he would have had Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, and Saquon Barkley all together.
Like we had last year.
Yeah, but he also has Metcalf this year that he just drafted. I mean, like, but if you're going to go for the rebuild, you got to go for it. His team didn't get better from trading away Julio Jones.
I do get your point, but he is a playoff team currently without Julio Jones.
Yeah, he's a playoff team at 1-2, and he's on the cusp of a playoff team. It's been 3 weeks.
I'm just saying his team's fine. Like
Right.
it's a big change now, but before the Saquon injury, it's reasonable to say that he could have competed even without Julio.
Sure, but then the Julio trade to me just makes no sense.
And that's fair. And unless he just believes in Adam Thielen, which is fine, because I think he got an additional first as well.
Sure.
So what should Fowler do to Aaron Jones, who is a guy who now is actually looking like the Packers like a guy like Jamal Williams even. And so Aaron Jones all of a sudden now isn't the bell cow there, and he's not as valuable. I mean, in a game that they routed the Broncos, he only saw 10 carries. Now he is questionable going into the game, so I didn't see when he left the game.
Isn't he always questionable?
He seems to be always questionable, but it begs the question, is Aaron Jones a sell high or sell at his current value?
He's always been a great running back. It's just if they use him, which they seem to never use him. So does he end
yes.
Does he end running back 1? Right? No. I mean, does he end top 18? So like a high running back 2?
No.
Well, then I mean, it might be past the point of high. Unless someone's a real believer, maybe you can scoop a first. But you could reasonably get a first for him.
And I would do that.
Yeah.
100% as a rebuilding team. So
if you want to rebuild, for sure, I would sell him then. Yeah.
And so just goes to show that he has a lot of opportunities to rebuild if that's the route he wanted to do. Now, the last guy I want to talk about on his team is DK Metcalf, who he had some great couple weeks in a row. And then this week he had similar target share and similar snap share with 85 plus in the last 2 weeks, snap percentage. But he only hauled in 2 catches for 67 yards. I'm not concerned about DK. Are you guys?
No, I like him. I mean, this year I think he'll be fine. If he's my wide receiver 3, it's okay, but not great. Going forward, I think he's a great dynasty asset.
Absolutely.
Yep, 100%.
So
It is kind of interesting to see him that low with receptions and yards, considering that Russell threw 400 yards.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
But still, I'm not concerned about him.
Yeah, definitely. So don't touch him if you decide to rebuild, Ben, I guess is the answer to that. Cool. Ben lost by 7 points. Obi gets lucky again and pulls up to 2-1. Ben Fowler, as you said, Sam, is the 6th playoff seed currently and at 1-2, and that's because of the points scored. And that's it, boys. That's our matchups. That's our players. Any last thoughts for today?
Big mover of the week. Who went up or down the most to you?
I like it. Mike. I don't know. I'm thinking about Mike. He just keeps moving up and he looks legit. I mean, his team scored high again, and obviously it's because of Russell Wilson. But I don't know. Plus on a lot of his players. So I'm believing in Mike's team.
I like his team too. I think I had him about 5th last week. I think he's probably. I'd personally probably rank him above me, just the fact that he's 3-0 and his points are competitive. To me, Barber's actually the biggest mover. I was not super high on his team just because his running backs leave something to be desired. But he continues to produce. He's had 3 good weeks. He's 3-0. I don't know. I think the number 2 seed's fair for him.
Kind of speaking to your point there, my biggest mover actually is Marcus Skoniewski, scoring over 200 points this week, and I know he's one of the highest point scorer in our league currently.
He's like 5th, I think.
Is he 5th?
4th or 5th, yeah.
Yeah, I just think Kamara's carrying his team a little bit. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if Robert Woods can get it going a little bit. I mean, he leaves a lot to be desired on his team, but somehow he seems to be able to put up the points, which I've found interesting so far.
Yeah, it just goes to show that there's just a lot of really good, like a lot of teams that could be playoff contenders, and it's a really exciting year for like most teams except for a couple, but we won't reiterate those teams.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess any final thoughts on anything else?
Well, good thing we kept it under 2 hours this time.
Well, it was under 2 hours last time. This time we're currently at 1:43, which is that's 7-minute improvement from last time. If we end right now.
Well, final note, good luck non-conference games.
Yeah, true. Yep, moving to non-conference. So.
And a big congratulations to little Sammy Betlin for getting married this last weekend.
Oh yeah, yep. I scored 1 PPR last week.
They don't call me Sam Leach for nothing.
Leach hyphenated Betlin.
Nice.
Nice.
And with that, Tom Brumbaugh out, Cody Hall out, and Sam Leach out.